My cousin spread rumors that I was into illegal stuff, laughing that I'd never be trusted again. So I handed the police his texts about dealing. He thought it was a prank until the cuffs clicked. My name's Eric, 28, male, and I've never felt betrayal hit as hard as it did coming from my own cousin, Matt, 30. Growing up, we weren't just family. We were practically brothers. Summers at my grandparents' lake house, sneaking out to smoke cigarettes behind the shed, covering for each other when we'd screw up. We shared secrets I never thought would leave our circle. And maybe that's why what he did cut so deep. It wasn't just some guy talking trash. It was Matt, the one person who knew enough about me to hit where it hurt. It started small. A buddy from work pulled me aside and said, "Hey man, people are saying you're into illegal stuff, like dealing." I laughed it off at first, figured it was a dumb rumor, the kind that dies in a week. But then another friend mentioned it. Then my boss gave me a look when I asked about a promotion I'd been grinding toward. That's when I knew. This wasn't just gossip floating in the wind. Someone was actively poisoning my name. And who else would know the right kind of dirt to make it stick? Matt, the same cousin who, a year earlier, had been bragging to me over beers about flipping pills at college for beer money. I never touched that crap, but he sure as hell did. He thought it was funny. He thought it made him edgy, dangerous in a way suburban kids romanticize. I kept my mouth shut back then, because family, right? But hearing my own life being dragged through the mud while he sat back and watched, it made my stomach twist. When I confronted him, I expected at least a little guilt. But Matt just smirked, beer can dangling from his fingers, and said, "Lighten up, dude. Nobody's ever going to trust you again. Guess that makes me the respectable one now." He actually laughed, like he hadn't just shoved a knife in my back and twisted it. Like my reputation, my job, my relationships, all of it, was some joke for his entertainment. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark with my phone, scrolling through our old texts. And there it was, the stuff he'd been dumb enough to write down. Whole threads of him bragging about who he sold to, what he carried, even receipts of Venmo requests with an X emojis. He thought he was untouchable. But all I could think, sitting there with the glow of the screen on my face, was, if he wants to burn me, maybe it's time I stop covering for him. And for the first time in years, I felt something solid in my chest instead of that constant ache. A plan. I thought maybe if I ignored Matt, the whole thing would just fizzle out. But rumors are like mold. They grow in the dark, spreading faster the less you touch them. Within a week, it wasn't just co-workers whispering. My landlord pulled me aside when I was dropping off rent. "Eric, just make sure nothing illegal is happening here, okay?" His tone was polite but sharp. He didn't even look me in the eye. That's when it hit me. Matt hadn't just been running his mouth at parties. He was deliberately feeding this story to anyone who'd listen. And of course, he made it theatrical. One night I went to a local bar to meet a friend, only to see Matt holding court at a table near the pool table. He was loud enough for half the place to hear, spinning some garbage story about how I'd gone into business for myself and moved past my 9 to 5. People laughed nervously, like they weren't sure if it was true but wanted to believe the drama. When our eyes met, he winked. I wanted to rip him off that stool. But instead, I walked out, fists clenched so tight my nails left marks in my palms. The fallout got uglier. My friend Ryan, 29, who I've known since high school, called me in a fury. Apparently, Matt had told his younger brother not to hang around me because I was a liability. A liability. Like I was some ticking bomb instead of the guy who used to sneak Ryan extra pizza slices after football practice. Everywhere I went, I could feel it. The weight of people second-guessing me, double-taking, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. Even at work, one of my supervisors, Mr. Lang, started hovering around more often, like he was waiting for me to slip up. All because Matt couldn't stand being the loser of the family, so he dragged me down to make himself look clean. But Matt wasn't clean. Not even close. He'd always had this streak, chaotic, impulsive, reckless. He once punched a hole in my aunt's drywall because she wouldn't give him gas money. He keyed an ex-girlfriend's car just because she dumped him. Everyone in the family knew he had anger issues, but they brushed it off as Matt being passionate. I saw it differently. Matt wasn't passionate. He was dangerous. And now he was dangerous with my name in his mouth. I started saving everything. Screenshots of our old conversations, Venmo transactions, even a couple of voice memos I'd recorded months back when Matt was bragging while drunk. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him bury me alive. And maybe, just maybe, I'd let him dig his own grave with the same shovel he'd tried to use on me. Don't forget to subscribe. It didn't take long for Matt to push things from whispers to outright chaos. The guy thrived on drama, and when I didn't rise to his bait at the bar that night, it must have pissed him off. Because suddenly, I wasn't just hearing about rumors. I was dealing with damage. It started with my car. A Monday morning, I walked outside ready to head to work, and there it was. 2 slashed tires and a spray-painted message across my driver's side door. In big, messy letters, dealer. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd puke right there in the driveway. Neighbors peeked out from their windows as the tow truck hauled my car away. One of them, a sweet old lady who always gave me extra zucchini from her garden, looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. Like Matt's words were finally becoming reality. I didn't have proof he did it, but come on. Who else? Matt was the only one with motive and the kind of unhinged streak to actually do something like that. That night, I called him. My voice shook, not from fear, but from pure fury. Matt, you think this is funny? Slashing my tires? Tagging my car? He laughed. Actually laughed. Don't know what you're talking about, cuz. Maybe you pissed off one of your customers, huh? I saw red. Ryan had to physically take the phone from me before I said something I couldn't walk back. But Matt wasn't done. 2 nights later, I came home to find him standing in my yard, drunk, yelling loud enough for the whole street to hear. Hey, Eric, you got anything for sale tonight? He was stumbling around, waving his arms like some deranged street performer. I tried to shove him off the property, but he pushed back, hard. We ended up chest to chest, and for a second, I thought he was going to swing. Instead, he shoved me into my own porch railing, cracking one of the boards clean in half. The sound was so loud, my neighbor called out from across the street. Do I need to call the cops? Matt froze then, like even he realized he'd crossed a line. He mumbled something about me being too uptight and staggered off down the street, laughing to himself. I stood there, breathing hard, staring at the broken railing like it was some kind of symbol. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just reputation warfare anymore. Matt wasn't going to stop until I either broke or broke him first. So, I picked up the pieces of the railing, threw them in the trash, and went back inside. Then I opened my laptop, scrolled through every single incriminating text Matt had ever sent me, every Venmo transaction, every bragging voice memo. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself if I should use them. Now it was only a question of when. The thing about Matt was, he didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted an audience while he did it. The next Saturday proved it. Ryan and I went out for a drink at a dive bar downtown. I was exhausted from dealing with the car repairs and just wanted to forget for a night. But as soon as we walked in, I saw him. Matt, propped up at the bar like a king on his throne, surrounded by people who were hanging on every word of whatever story he was spinning. He spotted me immediately, and I swear his eyes lit up like he'd been waiting for this. Well, look who it is, he shouted, loud enough to silence half the room. Mr. Entrepreneur himself. How's business, Eric? Sold out yet? The whole place chuckled. My face burned. Ryan muttered, Ignore him, just ignore him. But Matt wasn't having it. He pushed through the crowd until he was right in front of me, reeking of whiskey, smirk plastered on his face. You know, he said, tapping my chest with his finger. Funny thing is, people believe me now. They really think you're dirty. And honestly, kind of feels good being the one people trust instead of you. Finally. He said it like he'd been waiting years to confess that jealousy. Then, before I could answer, he raised his voice again. Don't worry, folks. Eric doesn't share. Stingy dealer, this one. The laughter was sharp, ugly. And in that moment, something inside me went still. Cold. It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. I didn't shove him, didn't argue. I just looked him dead in the eyes and said, You're right, Matt. People believe you. And when it's your turn, they'll believe me too. He laughed like it was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard, staggered back to the bar, and raised his glass. Hear that? Big talker over here. But I wasn't just talking. That night, I went home and pulled everything together. Every screenshot, every Venmo payment, every voice memo of him bragging about moving pills, shrooms, and worse. I organized it neatly in a folder. Dates, times, names. It looked less like gossip and more like a case file. Ryan sat next to me, watching me drag and drop evidence into one place. He didn't say much, just nodded slowly. "You're really doing this," he said finally. "Yeah," I told him, my voice steady. "He thinks no one will ever take me seriously again. But the cops? They'll take him seriously enough." And just like that, my plan was set. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Didn't expect this to blow up the way it has. Honestly, I thought I was just screaming into the void, trying to make sense of how my own cousin could tank my life for laughs. But reading through some of the DMs and comments, damn, y'all don't pull punches. Couple of highlights. One person said, "Matt sounds like the type of guy who'd rat himself out just to brag." That actually made me laugh because it's exactly right. The dude's arrogance is his Achilles heel, and I've got receipts that prove it. Another person said, "Call the cops, don't play hero." And listen, I hear you. I'm not about to pull some vigilante nonsense. But the irony is Matt handed me everything I need. He wrote his own obituary and text messages. Some people asked if I'm sure it was Matt who vandalized my car. No, I didn't catch him red-handed. But who else would spray dealer across my door in neon green? My grandma? Please. Matt's always been theatrical. Subtlety isn't in his DNA. And for those saying I should just cut him off, believe me, I tried that route. I stayed quiet for months while he trashed my name. But ignoring him didn't make him stop. It made him louder. He showed up drunk in my yard screaming about me selling. He shoved me hard enough to crack my railing. This isn't some petty cousin beef anymore. It's harassment. It's dangerous. So yeah, I've made my choice. I pulled together everything. Texts, Venmo screenshots, even voice recordings of him bragging. It's airtight. Ryan's been helping me organize it into a timeline so clean, even a half-asleep cop couldn't ignore it. And here's the kicker. Matt still thinks this is all just a joke. He saw me at the bar the other night, humiliated me in front of half the room, and walked away laughing like he'd already won. He has no idea the trap's already set. Some of y'all said to burn it all down. Tempting, not gonna lie. But I think I've found something better. Something poetic. He wanted everyone to believe I was the criminal? Fine. Let's see how he handles being treated like one. Because the next time Matt hears laughter in a crowded room, it's not going to be at my expense. It's going to be the sound of handcuffs clicking shut. Walking into the police station that Tuesday felt like stepping off a cliff. My hands were sweating through the manila envelope I'd packed. Dozens of pages of screenshots, Venmo receipts, and transcripts of Matt's bragging. Ryan came with me, mostly to make sure I didn't chicken out. He kept saying, "Dude, you're not ratting. You're surviving. Big difference." I needed to hear it because the family guilt was gnawing at me. Blood's supposed to be thicker than water, right? But what good is blood when it's toxic? The officer at the desk was this older guy, stone-faced, who probably thought I was wasting his time until I slid the folder across the counter. "It's about my cousin," I said, voice steady. "He's been spreading rumors that I'm into illegal stuff. But the truth is, he's the one dealing." The officer flipped open the folder. His eyebrows went up as he skimmed the screenshots. "This all from him?" "Every word," I said. They took me seriously after that. A detective came in, asked me to walk through the timeline, how I'd gotten the messages, if I had reason to believe he was still active. I told them everything. The late-night texts, the bragging about sales, the Venmo with obvious code emojis. They took notes. They even copied the voice memos where you can literally hear Matt slurring, "Man, I made 300 off those tabs tonight. Easy money." When I walked out, the weight I'd been carrying for months felt lighter. Not gone, but shifting. Like I wasn't alone anymore. And the best part? Matt had no clue. That weekend, he doubled down on his circus. Showed up at a mutual friend's cookout, swaggering like he owned the place. Ryan and I were there too, And of course, Matt couldn't resist putting on a show. He clinked his beer bottle against mine, grinning. No hard feelings, cuz. Heard you've been real quiet lately. Guess you finally accepted your reputation, huh? I just smiled back. Yeah, Matt. Guess I did. He laughed, slapped me on the back, and went right back to holding court, telling some story about a guy who owed him money. His voice carried across the yard, brash, careless, like he thought the world was his stage. I didn't tell him that stage had a spotlight now, one he couldn't see. Because while he was busy trashing my name, the police were already watching his. And the cuffs? They were closer than he thought. Don't forget to subscribe. It didn't take long for the ripples to hit. About 2 weeks after I handed everything to the police, Matt started acting. Twitchy. The swagger was still there, but now it was cracked around the edges. At the bar, instead of bragging, he'd huddle with 2 or 3 people in the corner, constantly checking over his shoulder. At one point, Ryan leaned over and whispered, "They've got him spooked. He feels it." And I think he was right. Because then came the family drama. My aunt, Matt's mom, called me out of the blue. Her voice was sharp, panicked. "Eric, what the hell did you say to the police? Matt's saying you're trying to ruin his life. He says you're jealous." I almost laughed at the word jealous. Jealous of a guy who spray-painted my car and screamed drug deals into my front yard? But I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything that wasn't already in his own words, I told her. If Matt's scared, it's because he knows what he's done. She didn't like that answer. She snapped that family doesn't betray family, then hung up on me. But betrayal? That word sat with me all night. Because what else was it when Matt tried to burn my name to ash? A few nights later, things got uglier. I came home from work to find my front porch trashed, plants overturned, railings splintered worse than before, and a note scrawled in red marker, "Snitches get stitches." I knew it was him. The handwriting was messy but familiar. Same jagged scrawl I'd seen on birthday cards growing up. For a second, my chest went ice cold. Was Matt really willing to go that far? Ryan wanted to call the cops immediately, but I hesitated. Not because I wanted to protect Matt, hell no, but because I realized something. Every step he took now was digging him deeper. If the police were watching, and I had no doubt they were, this was exactly the kind of behavior they'd use to paint the picture. Harassment, intimidation, escalation. And Matt? He was too blinded by paranoia to realize he wasn't scaring me anymore. He was just handing them proof. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling every time I walked to my car or heard a noise outside, like he was lurking, waiting to lash out again. My sleep got thin, dreams jagged. The tension in my chest wasn't rage anymore. It was anticipation, because I knew the storm was coming. And Matt? He was already standing in the middle of it, laughing like the lightning couldn't touch him. But the thunder was close now. Real close. Update 2. Okay. So, things have escalated way faster than I thought they would. First off, thanks to everyone who's been following this mess and dropping advice. Some of you told me straight up to get cameras installed. Did that? Best money I've spent in a long time. And you were right. Within 48 hours, they paid for themselves. Because guess who decided to redecorate my porch with overturned plants and a nice little "snitches get stitches" note? Yeah. Subtle, Matt. Real subtle. The cops already have the footage. The man couldn't even hide his own face. Just walked right up, hoodie down, drunk grin plastered across his face like he was auditioning for World's Dumbest Criminals. And before anyone says maybe it wasn't him, trust me, it was. Same messy handwriting I've seen on every sloppy birthday card he's ever signed. He basically autographed his own threat. The family situation has blown up too. My aunt, his mom, called, screaming that I'm trying to destroy her boy. I told her I didn't tell the cops anything that wasn't already coming out of his own mouth. That didn't land well. She hung up after hitting me with the classic, "Family doesn't betray family." Right? Tell that to the cousin who spray-painted dealer across my car and shoved me into a railing. I know some of you are worried for me. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said I'm not on edge. I flinch at every sound outside. My sleep is trash. Half the time, I'm waiting for him to show up again. But here's the difference now. I'm not scared the way I was before. Because every time he lashes out, he's not burying me. He's burying himself. One of you left a comment that stuck with me. People like Matt always think they're writing your ending, but really, they're just scribbling their own confession. Damn, that hit hard. Because it's exactly what's happening. He can't stop bragging, can't stop pushing, can't stop performing, and the cops are watching now. So yeah, the storm's close. I don't know exactly when the hammer's going to drop, but I can feel it. And when it does, I won't need to say a word. Matt's own voice, the same one that laughed in my face, called me a dealer, and humiliated me in front of everyone. That's what's going to do him in. He just doesn't know it yet. Don't forget to subscribe. The night it finally happened wasn't quiet. It was loud, chaotic, and honestly poetic. There was this birthday party at a mutual friend's house, a big backyard, string lights, half the town crammed in with cheap beer and bad country music. I almost didn't go, but Ryan insisted. If you stay locked inside, he wins, he told me. And he was right. Of course, Matt was there, already drunk, already loud. He spotted me within minutes and stumbled over, grinning like the devil himself. "Eric!" he shouted, throwing an arm around my shoulders. "My favorite snitch!" The whole yard turned to look. My stomach clenched, but this time I didn't flinch. I just stood still. He kept going, slurring louder and louder. This guy thinks he's so clean, but everybody knows he's the real dealer. Me? I'm just the good cousin. Right, Eric? He jabbed me in the chest with his finger, laughing hysterically. But then, flashing lights. Blue and red washing over the yard. 2 police cruisers pulling up to the curb. At first, Matt actually laughed harder. "Oh, look! They came for you, buddy." He raised his beer in a mock toast, like this was the punchline of his longest-running joke. Only the officers didn't walk past him. They walked right up to him. "Matthew Carter?" one of them said. Matt froze, beer halfway to his lips. Yeah? You're under arrest for distribution of controlled substances, harassment, and vandalism." The second officer spun him around before the words even sank in. And when the cuffs clicked shut, the sound was so sharp it cut through the music, through the chatter, through everything. The whole yard went dead silent. Matt twisted, wild-eyed, trying to laugh it off. "This is a prank. Eric, tell them. You set this up, right? This is just some joke." But no one was laughing now, not even him. His mom tried to rush forward, screaming about lies, but the cops held her back. Matt kept thrashing, yelling that it wasn't real, that they'd regret it. But the look in his eyes told the truth. He finally realized this wasn't some story he could spin. This was real. And me? I didn't move. Didn't gloat. Didn't say a word. I just stood there, steady, watching him finally choke on his own performance. Because for once, the audience wasn't laughing with him. They were staring in stunned silence as the curtain came down. The days after Matt's arrest were surreal. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No more 2 a.m. yelling in my yard. No more whispers at work. No more tension in my gut every time my phone buzzed. It was like someone finally turned the volume down on my life. The family, of course, exploded. My aunt left me 6 voicemails in one night, each one more desperate than the last. The first was anger, screaming that I'd ruined her son's future. The second was denial, swearing Matt was set up. The last was begging, pleading with me to take it all back because he's still family. But there's no taking back texts he sent himself. No undoing Venmo requests he thought were clever. No erasing security footage of him trashing my porch like a tantrum-throwing child. Ryan kept reminding me, he did this to himself. And he was right. Word spread fast. The same people who used to whisper about me being shady were suddenly whispering about him. Except this time, it wasn't rumors. It was reality. Matt Carter, the loudmouth who laughed in my face, was now the punchline. I saw him once more, weeks later, in court. He looked small. Not physically, Matt was always broad-shouldered, but deflated. His smirk was gone. His eyes darted like a cornered animal. When the judge read out the charges, he glanced back at me like I was supposed to save him, like the cousin who kept his secrets for years would swoop in one more time. I didn't flinch. The gavel came down. Probation, fines, Mandatory rehab. Not prison, but enough to strip away the cocky mask he wore his whole life. Enough to brand him with the reputation he tried to pin on me. As I walked out of that courtroom, the sun hit me in a way it hadn't in months. Warm. Real. Like I could finally breathe without the weight of his shadow. Revenge wasn't spray paint on a car or screaming matches in the night. It wasn't some dramatic showdown in front of family. It was quieter, sharper. It was letting him write his own downfall, then stepping back while the world finally read the truth. Matt once told me, laughing, "Nobody will ever trust you again." Funny thing is, he was right. Nobody trusts him now. And that's sweeter than any punch I could have thrown.